Alrighty. All right. Good morning or good evening to you. I'm so used to you doing it in the morning. I got two sessions in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in an evening. So it is quite unusual for me to be doing this in the evening, or you'd think I would be used to it by now, but I'm not for some reason. So anyway, good evening to you. I had to think about that again. Good evening, good evening. It is very good to see everyone here. I am just, let's see here. I am just getting everything still a little bit working. But yes, it is good to see you all here. Okay. It is very good to see you all here. Alrighty. Okay. So, today we've got a very, very important and very, very special topic. It is the topic of exercise. Now, I know that up there, it says exercise and diet, and that's because I have it really all condensed down into one presentation. And what I've done is I have expanded it on the information that I had in here, and really expanded on it, but at the same time, I want to make sure that everyone knows that this is still something that is really important. I wanted to make sure, basically, that we got enough information here for you guys. So I really expanded on it. So we're going to look at exclusively exercise today, and then next week we're going to look at diet. Now, that being said, I do want to, well, you know what, before we do anything else, thank you very much for joining us. I am the King's Bard. You can find me on Facebook as well as on YouTube and on Twitch. If you want to know about health, about anything about the Bible, if you have any interest in music, if you have any interest in any of those topics, or history for that matter, and especially history in the light of the Bible, in the light of Bible prophecy, or in that, then you can check out my channel on my Facebook page. Again, that's The King's Bard on either Facebook or on YouTube. Please check us out if you're new, and if you're not new, then welcome back. It's good to have you. Before we start, I just want to say, as usual, we're going to open up with a word of prayer, because this is, health is holistic. And so, that being said, we're going to go ahead and do that, and we will dive right on into the subject of exercise. Really important topic. So let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your grace, for your mercy, for your love, for your tenderness, and for everything that you have given to us, especially for Jesus. I just ask that you would please be with us now. Please teach, Lord. Help us to understand and to learn these things and to apply them to our lives. And moreover, Lord, I ask that you would help us by faith to grasp the promises that you would be able to help us that you would be living in us to accomplish these things, because you care about our physical health as well as our spiritual health. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name we pray and ask all these things. Amen. All righty. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us, and we are going to go ahead and get started. I do want to do a little disclaimer here. I don't have it up here at the moment, but I do, of course, the information in this presentation is not intended for the diagnosis, treatment, prevention, or cure of any disease or condition. If you want to make any changes to your lifestyle, if you want to implement anything like that, any changes to a regimen, implement any natural remedies of any sort, and etc., then please consult with your physician before doing so. That being said, let's go ahead and dive right on into the second E in the RESTORED acronym. We've been going over the RESTORED acronym over the past few weeks, and that acronym stands for rest, enough water, sunlight, temperance, oxygen, relationships, exercise, and diet. We are on the second to last letter today, the second E, and that is exercise. Exercise is really, really, really important. You see, life is characterized by activity. Now, whether this is cellular activity or actual mobility, it varies from life form to life form. Plants don't usually move around a whole bunch, whereas animals do, but even so, their cells and their organ systems, or just the organ system cells, organelles, etc. Those are all working. Those are all active, and life is characterized by being active, and so exercise is a huge thing. Now, there are many different forms of exercise, many different kinds, but there are ultimately two basic categories. And in each of these categories, you can divide them up. There's aerobic and anaerobic and all this other stuff. That's not really what we're looking at here. Although those are also important, it's not really my field of expertise. Exercise happens to be a weak spot of mine. I'm not very good at this, but I recognize that it's important, and also on top of that, I recognize that regardless of regardless of whether or not regardless of how much or how little I actually apply it, I recognize that I need to apply it, and it would be hypocritical of me not to admit that this is something I need to work on. But there are ultimately two basic forms of exercise. You have cardiovascular exercise, cardio, commonly called cardio, and then you have weight-bearing exercise or weight training. And these two forms of exercise really, this is really where your system is going to be. Basically, it's the two kinds of two different ways of working the body system. That's ultimately what it is. And these two, and I apologize for the camera glitches. I think I need a new webcam. The cord is being funny, so I apologize about that. But yes, so cardio and weight-bearing exercise are the two basic categories of exercise. There are also optimal methods of structuring an exercise routine if you're using a routine. One of the most effective, and let's see if I can fix this here a little bit. Okay. There are optimal methods of structuring a routine, the most effective of which, if you're going to be doing an exercise routine, would be interval training. Now, interval training, or IT, as it's commonly abbreviated, we'll go into a bit more. It's become more popular in recent years. Intermittent fasting is also something is often, how shall I say, is often applied. It's the same basic principle. Although it's applied to eating, that's not really, I won't get into it now. I might get into, I'll get into that sort of a thing later on, next week when we talk about diet. But suffice to say, interval training is probably the single most effective method of you doing an exercise routine. But I'll talk a bit about exercise routines and such in a little bit. Ultimately, exercise needs will vary by age and by gender. Different people have different needs. Sometimes, even depending on your different lifestyles as well. People who are already relatively active in their work life and such, people who have very active jobs will need very little exercise the way that we think of exercise, in a gym, etc. People with labor-intensive jobs and such, they don't really need a lot of, exercise time because, if anything, they need, they may need to actually slow down a bit. But that not usually, but there are some people who overwork themselves physically. But gender also has a component as far as your exercise needs, and we'll talk a bit about that as well. And again, I'm sorry about the camera glitches. I don't know what's going on exactly, although I have an idea. So let's go to those types of exercise again. Cardiovascular exercise. This cardio exercise builds endurance and stamina by strengthening your cardiovascular system and your respiratory system. These are very, very important, and we'll get into more detail. This is running, swimming, walking, biking, etc. Weight-bearing exercise, on the other hand, or weight training, this strengthens the musculoskeletal system, so the muscles that are attached to your bones and your bones themselves, those are both strengthened by the weight-bearing exercise or weight training. Resistance also. And this is Walking is a weight-bearing exercise as well, because your legs, more specifically, and your bones are bearing your own body weight. But weight training, so that's lifting weights, resistance training, where instead of actual weight, you're pulling against resistance, that is also a weight-bearing exercise. Um, Both types are important for overall health. However, men need both types more so than women do. And again, I'll talk about that. We're going to go into cardio here in just a moment, and then we'll talk about weight bearing. So, once again, cardio exercise is exercise that benefits the respiratory and cardiovascular systems. This is very, very important for the health of both of these systems. Um, how shall I put this? When it comes to this here, um, how shall I put this? Um, Basically, what happens, right, is when you're doing this, when you are exercising, you're doing cardio exercise, your heart is increasing its rate. Your heart rate increases, which means also your breathing will increase in speed. Um, I again apologize. I don't know what's going on with this camera. I don't like those glitches. I'm going to need to get a new camera. Um, let's see if I can fix it this way. Okay. So your breathing increases, your heart rate increases, and of course, because your heart rate increases, the rate of blood flowing through your body increases as well. This is exercise, not just, this builds the strength of your heart and your blood vessels, as well as building the strength of your lungs. This is very, very, very important because heart disease, of course, is one of the major causes of death. In fact, it's the single greatest cause of death that exists in the world today. And it's probably, oh dear, I am sorry about that. Let me see if I can fix that here. Sorry. Okay. Well, that didn't do much. All right. Anyway, cardiovascular disease is a huge, huge, entirely. That's not good. I don't know why this is doing that. I apologize. Let's see here. Let's see. Anyway, exercise that benefit. So cardio is very, very important for the health of both the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. This means that it helps very much so with endurance and with overall fitness. This is very, very, very important. There we go. Okay, now let's hope that this camera stays on. Okay, so overall, this really helps with endurance. Actually, this very much helps with endurance because your heart being able to pump more have more strength with its pumping is also more efficient. And of course, if it's more efficient, you're able to do much more with the energy that you have available to you. And of course, this means that your overall fitness is very much improved. There is a common misconception that's going out in the world right now, and I apologize here. Allergy season has just started, and it's the only time of the year that I have allergies. Anyway, when it comes to, there's a very common misconception out there that's being perpetuated by certain kinds of media and certain attitudes, certain perspectives. And it's the idea that you can be overweight and healthy. Well, no, you cannot be overweight and healthy. However, that being said, there is also a misconception that you cannot be overweight and fit, and that is not correct. You can be fit and overweight. You can be overweight and fit. Your cardiovascular system can actually be in fairly decent health if you are exercising regularly, but You cannot be overweight and healthy. There's a difference between the two. You can be overweight and fit, but you cannot be overweight and healthy. But that's okay, because fitness is a step towards being healthy. And as long as you're taking a step at a time, as long as you're taking those steps, and that's where you need to go. So, and as you exercise, you will also tend to lose weight. It's very rare that people will exercise a ton to get fit and not lose weight. Because, well, let me put it this way. Your muscles are like engines, and of course, excess weight is caused by fat, which is essentially just energy or fuel storage. So if you're having your engines, if you're using your engines more often, and in fact you're really using them, then over time your engines are going to be burning more and more and more and more fuel. This means, of course, that excess fuel is going to be used up. On top of that, interestingly enough, something else is the case. When your muscles are being used more and they're stronger, they also, even when they're not being used to exercise, even if they're just kind of existing, they still require more energy overall to work. So your engines, even your muscular engines, when running on idle, are still burning more fuel if they're being used regularly and if they're being pushed to the limit. If you're using your muscles and exercising them, you're straining them regularly, then they are going to use more energy overall. This is a great thing for people who want to lose weight, because as you're developing that fitness, as you're exercising, that means that your muscles are going to be using overall more fuel. And as you exercise, as you build that muscle, then that's really going to help you to lose that weight, because you're going to be not only using the excess fuel for exercise, you're also going to be using it even when you're idling. So it's a really, really, really beneficial thing. Now, there are, as mentioned before, walking, biking, swimming, and hiking are all very big parts of cardio. Now, each of these have different reasons for this. They're not weight bearing, although walking is weight bearing, but biking and swimming and hiking would be, I guess, too, technically. But biking and swimming, these are really the best forms of cardiovascular exercise, and that's because they're not so much involving pressing against some ridiculously heavy load. Now, if you were backpacking, not just hiking, then yes, you would definitely have a heavy load as well. But if you are just walking, or if you're biking, or especially if you're swimming, you have almost no load on you at all. It's not weight bearing whatsoever. But you do have a lot of cardiovascular exercise because you're moving your muscles a lot. You're getting your heart to beat because you're being very active, and you're getting your lungs as well to work. And so swimming, biking, walking, hiking, these are what's best for the joints and the overall body. There are other kinds of this as well, jogging, running, etc. Those are also very good forms of cardiovascular exercise. However, they're not as good on the joints. Now, there's other kinds as well. Horseback riding is a very, very good cardio. You wouldn't think so because of the modern misconception of riding a horse. Because so many people assume that riding a horse is just like riding a car, where you're just sitting there and the horse is doing all the work. Actually, that's not quite the case. I've ridden a horse before several times. I'm not a horseback rider by any stretch of the imagination. I just have happened to ride on a horse a few times. But horseback riding is no easy feat, and it is a lot of work. You especially have to have a strong core and strong leg muscles, because you have to hold yourself on that horse, and on top of that, you have to stay balanced and everything else. It's really, really intense at some points, especially if you're going faster than just a walking speed. And so horseback riding is also a very, very good form of cardio exercise. It actually does help get the blood pumping and everything else, the lungs going and whatnot. Even riding in a carriage, those old-fashioned carriages, that was good exercise for the same reason, because you had horses pulling you out front. Unfortunately, that's not really a viable form of exercise today. Horseback riding really isn't for most people either, but if you have that option available, then go do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Of course, other forms of cardiovascular exercise might include taking up a martial art, things like that. That would also be a form of cardiovascular and sometimes weight bearing as well, depending on the martial art. Of course, bearing in mind that martial arts that are appropriate versus inappropriate, there are appropriate and inappropriate spiritual things with the different martial arts. Especially, if you're a Christian, you can't really practice Eastern martial arts. Thankfully, there is a growing movement for historical European martial arts that don't have anything spiritual associated with them, so that the people involved may practice whatever religion they like, but it's not directly connected to the martial art itself. And so it doesn't really matter what background you come from. You can practice your own religion freely. But there is no religion directly connected to the martial art. It's just fighting. And I'm all for self-defense, mind you. I am a pacifist. I don't believe in killing unless there is absolutely no other choice. But sometimes there is no other choice, and in those cases you do need to do that. So martial arts, especially historical European martial arts, are very good forms of cardio exercise. I mean, even just drills. I've done some of that on my own. I wish there was a HEMA club here where I live. There isn't. The closest one is an hour away, or an hour and a half away. But, man, I've done some drills on my own. That stuff is, you don't even have to be having anything heavy. You can just be using if you're using a sword or a spear or anything like that. That stuff it doesn't have to be heavy, and it usually isn't. But man, it's good exercise. And so, that's also another good one, especially historical European martial arts for cardio. Very good. That being said, men, women, and people of all age groups can benefit from cardio. Now, obviously, you're not going to take a child of 2 years old jogging with you, right? But everyone is going to benefit from cardio. In fact, children, by and large, do cardio all the time. I mean, if you've ever been around, especially small children, they run around, they sprint around, everything. That's their cardio. People, older folks, people who are older than just child age, it's a little harder for us to have that consistent, cardio exercise. But that being said, men, women, and people of all age groups really can benefit from cardio. Now, it's obviously going to be adapted to whatever age group you are in, to whatever, to your, and of course to your own personal fitness level. Somebody who is not terribly fit is not going to be able to do the same thing as somebody who is very fit. Somebody who is on the older side of things is not going to be able, usually, unless they're very fit already and they've been fit for a long time. A fit older person, and if you were to take a fit person who is in their later years, and an unfit person who's, say, my age, young person, and you put them together, yeah, the fit older person is going to absolutely smoke the unfit younger person. That's just the way it is. That being said, if you take a fit young person and a fit older person, their needs are going to be different. Their bodies are going to be different. They're in different stages, but everyone can benefit from cardio exercise. Everyone can, and everyone needs it. Everyone needs it. It's essential for everybody, man or woman, young or old. It's essential for everyone. Now, that being said, weight training is a little bit different, or weight-bearing exercises. This involves strengthening the muscles through weight-bearing exercises or resistance exercises. it could be either. Now, of course, weight bearing is where you're actually like lifting physical weights or moving physical weights. An example, well, of course, your standard bench press, right, or curling or that sort of thing. Standard gym exercises, with dumbbells, barbells, etc. However, there are also resistance exercises. This is where instead of lifting an actual weight, you are pulling against something that's resisting you, and it gives the same sort of exercise. Pounds of force is what you're pulling against. Instead of fighting against gravity, in addition to fighting against inertia, you are going to be fighting against a different opposing force. Instead of just gravity, you're going up against some actual tension that's going on. Now, this does somewhat help with the cardiovascular system and with endurance. Now, this would be mostly because as you move your muscles, the blood vessels inside your muscles are forced to pump. And that's just, yeah. And so that does help the cardiovascular system. It does get your heart rate going, but not as much as cardio training or as cardio exercise. So it's really important to do weight training or weight-bearing exercises or resistance exercises as well. And it does also help with endurance because you're working your muscles more, and so your muscles are more able to take more weight for longer periods of time. Now, it obviously depends on the sort of exercise you're doing. I remember back when I was in community college, we were doing exercise. I had an exercise class, or more accurately, a weight class, weight training class. And so we would do, there were two paths that you would go on. There was either endurance training or strength training. Endurance training was to where you would do smaller weights, but you would do more reps, whereas strength training was it was basically building muscles or toning muscles. And there were a lot of people who went with strength training because, and of course, most of it was men, by the way. Most of the class was men, and on top of that, most of them went for strength training rather than endurance training. I opted for endurance training because I don't really, for one thing, I'm slightly above average height, and I'm also of a very slender build. That means it's very, very unlikely for me to actually get very big muscles. It's very, very difficult. I have to work very hard to do it. And that's because I've got more distance. I happen to be very long-limbed. That means that my muscles have more distance to go. I have to do a whole lot more actual building in order for my muscles to get any sort of massive size. And I don't really care for that anyway. So I opted for endurance training because I've always thought, well, what use is something, what use is it if you can lift 300 pounds for 2 seconds? How's that applicable for anything? If you can lift 250 pounds for, say, 30 seconds, that's a whole lot more impressive, and it's a whole lot more useful. I mean, come on. So that's what my thought process was. But most of the guys went for strength training and building those big muscles. Not all of them, but most of them. And so you do have that component as well. That being said, I do want to say here that, with weight training, lifting or moving heavy weights, resistance training, doing regular heavy physical activity, those things all count as weight training. Now, let me see. This is something very interesting. I'm reminded of a story, and I was thinking about this as I was putting this together. Back when I was a lifestyle coach, I had some very interesting experiences, and I would volunteer. I volunteered several times at free clinics that were hosted hither and thither and yon, mostly in my hometown, but also I did volunteer at one major free clinic down in the Los Angeles area, and while I was doing it in my hometown, I had one guy come through. And what we did was, what the free clinic was, you had free medical care, or free medical evaluation, free dental care, and free eye care. And so basically you would get free evaluation for glasses, you would get free teeth cleanings, you would get free, you would have teeth pulled, you would have cavities done, things like that, all for free. And as well as free medical evaluation, you'd get blood panels, you get things like that, or at least blood sugar, kind of like a blood sugar panel. You wouldn't quite do the hemoglobin A1C or something like that, but blood sugar and everything else. And then if they wanted to, they could stop by the lifestyle coaching. And of course, the way things worked, you pretty much had to walk through lifestyle coaching to get out. And so we had lifestyle coaching there. And this one guy came up, and I sat down with, he sat down with me. He was brought over to me, and we went over his numbers and things like that and his lifestyle, and he was going, I have no idea why it is I'm so healthy. I don't understand it. I have no idea. I just don't know. Well, okay, why? And he says, well, because I don't exercise. I don't have a very good diet. I drink soda all the time. I sit around like I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. Why am I so healthy? I don't get it. And so, my first thought was, okay, well, let's try and see what's going on here. There must be something that's missing here. And so I was asking question after question after question. Okay, well, what about this? No, not really. What about this? No, that doesn't really apply to me. Okay. And asking question after question, hitting dead end after dead end. And then I finally asked him, okay, well, what do you do for work? Oh, he says, I do landscaping. Yeah, I do the yard work all the time. So I'm out mowing lawns and trimming bushes and things like that. I said, oh, okay, well, there's your answer. You're not exercising in a gym, but man, you're getting a ton of exercise. He was out there for 9 hours a day doing heavy, intense yard work. That's weight training and cardio all in one, and that's actually really the best form of exercise that you can get. And we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. That being said, men, more than women, especially need weight training to maintain health. As a matter of fact, women will get a huge boost, as everyone will, from cardio training. But for men, and if they do nothing else, if they just have cardio, women get a huge boost in their cardiovascular health and overall health. Men, however, in order to obtain the same sort of benefit from exercise as women do from pure cardio, need to have both regular cardio and regular weight training in order to actually get the same benefit. It's astonishing, but it makes sense. Men have a much higher muscle to body fat ratio than women do. And so in order to maintain our health, we do need to exercise and work more because we need to keep our muscles up. Now, at least I should say on average, there are women who have plenty more muscle than body fat. That's absolutely the case. And there are plenty of men who have more body fat than muscle. But generally speaking, the design of men is men have more muscle than body fat, have a higher muscle to body fat ratio than women do. And that's just because we're structured differently. Yeah. That being said, men do need that. And so if you are a man and you have been doing tons of cardio, but you've been kind of neglecting that weight training, get that weight training. You need it. Get that weight-bearing exercise started. Walking isn't as much. That's more cardio than weight-bearing. That's weight-bearing that's good for your bones. It's not really good for everything else. It doesn't really count for this. So weight training is really, you got to start doing that. Lifting or moving heavy weights, resistance training, heavy physical activity regularly. You got to start doing that. And again, this is where I fall flat. I do a lot of walking. I don't do a whole lot of this stuff. So this is something that, you really got to do. I do a lot of cardio relative to, a lot of people. I mean, for goodness sake, I work upstairs and I never take the elevator because it's 1,000 times slower to take the elevator than it takes like 5 minutes for the elevator to go from floor 1 to floor 2. And it's just a 2-floor building. So, like, why? I'll just take the stairs. It takes me 10 seconds to pop up, if that. Yeah. But I don't do a whole lot of weight training. And so this, for me, this is me talking to me here. I need to do more physical weight training. Yard work is a great way to do it, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Interval training. Now I'm going to talk about interval training here because I did mention it before. Interval training is a method of exercise that mixes exercise and rest. Now this is very important. I did this a lot when I was up north, when I was doing my training program, my certification program for lifestyle coaching. This is very, very interesting, and it works very, very well. A lot of the studies are showing it's very efficient and it's very effective in its exercise. It's where you have a high intensity exercise for a period of time, and then you have a period of active rest for another, often the same another period of time, often the same length as the first. Well, what does that mean? Well, basically, what you're doing is you are let's say you want to do this for cardio. Okay, so when you're doing this, what you're doing is, let's say you start out by warming up. So you want to go out and and you're doing cardio. So your cardio is jogging around the neighborhood block, let's say. So what you do, if you want to do interval training or IT, you start out with a walk to warm up. A brisk walk, and then you do and then you break into a jog for about 30 seconds to a minute, or let's say about a minute. So you jog for a minute, and you go down to a brisk walk. After that minute's up, you go down to a brisk walk for about 30 seconds, and then you go back up for another minute of, after the 30 seconds, you go back up for another minute of jogging, and so on. And you alternate like that back and forth, first, basically until you complete whatever exercise program that you've set, exercise goal that you've set for yourself. Basically, until you've done enough exercise of that type. You don't want to absolutely exhaust yourself, but it's still important to push yourself a little bit. So now, of course, that being said, again, exercise. I really want to emphasize this point. Exercise is all relative to you. Not everyone's going to be able to jog right away. Not everyone's even going to be able to walk. I used to walk 15,000 steps each day, and 15,000 steps for me, that's about, let's see, how many miles would that be? Well, 6,600 steps was 3 miles. So if you take that and you multiply that by 2, 6 miles, probably around 7 miles or so every day. I used to walk 7 miles every day, just about. And there have been days where there was one day I walked 25,000, almost 26,000 steps. And of course that's, so that's another, that's a lot of steps. That's a lot of mileage. And in fact, there was one day where I even walked 35,000 steps, climbed 93 flights of stairs, something like that. I was very tired that day, but that's beside the point, right? You want to get, not everyone's going to be able to do that. Not anyone is able to even do 10,000 steps a day. That's okay. Do what you can. Even a minute of exercise every day has been shown to be beneficial. Even just a minute of exercise is shown to be beneficial. And so anything that you can do just to start out with is fine. Just build yourself up. Just like hydrotherapy, I talk about that all the time. You don't need to be, you can't go super hot, super cold right off the bat. You got to build yourself up to that. You can't go in, you can't plunge into the Arctic Circle, or the equivalent thereof, temperature-wise, right off the bat. It's something you have to build yourself up to, and that you should build yourself up to. If you have an overall weak system, if you haven't exercised, then you can't do it right off the bat. You gotta do it over time, increasing. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. That's just starting where you are. It's just like the gospel. God takes you where you are, and he turns you into something amazing as a result. And the same thing is true with exercise. You start out where you are, and then through exercise you go and you become something more than you ever were before. That's exercise. And so, that's the way it works. Now, that being said, for interval training, it's very good for cardio. I haven't really seen it used for weight training, but you can use it for weight training as well. Now, what are the best kinds of exercise? This is a very, very important question that a lot of people simply don't ask. What are the best kinds of exercise? This is really, really important. What are they? Well, exercise is actually best when you accomplish something. Now, what in the world does that mean? Well, it's because it has mental benefits as well as physical benefits. Now, that's really something because mental benefits, you want to benefit your brain as well as your body because your body and your brain are, well, connected. You can't separate one from the other. You take away your body, you don't have a mind. You take away your mind, well, your body's still there, but you can't do anything. So your mind and your body really combine together. That's what you're looking at. So you're looking at so exercise is really best when you actually accomplish something. So that being said, useful physical labor is the best exercise that you can get. This means, of course, that bodybuilding, muscle sculpting, etc. is actually not terribly healthy. You see those people who have these, you can see, all you have to do is look at those movies. Those movies, those superhero movies and such that are out now. All the Marvel Avengers and stuff like that and whatnot. I don't know. I was very tempted to say Marvel DC movies, whatever, because, just to irritate, just to show, kind of ignorant. I don't really know a whole lot about those things. But what I do know is that those people, those men that are portrayed as superheroes that have those ridiculously sculpted bodies, yeah, that's actually not really physically possible. A lot of those shots, like, for example, I do know this. In the first Captain America movie, right, the very first one, where you have him come out of whatever pod thingamajigger, I don't know, that he's in, right, whatever pod thing that he's in after he's being transformed or whatnot. And the actor steps out, right, in the midst of, I think, fog machine stuff. I don't know. I've never seen the movie. But I've seen the scene. And so he steps out, and, he's looking at this, and, or he's kind of standing, and, you see all this sculpted muscle. Apparently, what actually happened is that, yes, he did work out, but the director ended up having him dehydrate himself to the point of near death to shoot that scene so that the muscles would be really brought out in that scene. And that is actually very, very common, and it's because dehydrating really dries your skin out and causes it to conform to your muscles and such. Now, there's other reasons for it. That's not quite the best explanation. Somebody who was a bit more of an anatomist, physiologist would be able to tell a little bit more. A doctor would be able to explain it much better than I could. But suffice to say, that's not even a healthy look. You look like that, you're not healthy. And if you look at actually strong people throughout history, they, or just, strong folks that are, you look at the rural folks, that's where you look at, someone's strong if they work on a farm. People who live on a farm and who have been raised on a farm and who do that sort of a thing, they are ridiculously strong often because, they're chucking around, bales of hay or, whatever all. They have a, hard working life. And you look at those people and they're not defined, they're not toned, but a lot of them are big. They're not overweight, they're just big. I knew a man, he wasn't a farm worker, but he worked on the oil rigs. We have oil rigs out where I live. And he was a big guy, big guy. He was 5 feet at the shoulders, and I don't mean tall. Big guy. And I remember we were helping a church member to move. And so, I'm over there when, we got a bunch of guys over and we're, moving furniture. And this guy walks out. He's got a love seat on his shoulder. It's just him. Just him. carrying a love seat, and I apologize for the camera glitches. He's got a love seat that he's carrying by himself, and he just kind of walks down the stairs with it, and then says, "Okay, we're," and then he just by himself walks it all the way, not only down the stairs but out of the house, and puts it in the moving truck, all by himself, no help, doesn't ask for help, anything like that. And then when we get there, he just kind of picks it up and and walks over casually to the to the person we're moving in and says, "Okay, hey, where do you want this?" You know, but he didn't have those very, very well-defined, sculpted muscles that bodybuilders have. He didn't need it. That's not what a strong person actually looks like. Strong people don't look like that. It's not healthy. Those really, really well-defined muscles, it's not actually healthy. You do want to, big muscles are not bad. They're just, you don't get them by, you don't get that muscle definition. That's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. So useful physical labor will get you what you want. To be actually usefully strong. Useful physical labor is the best exercise. And so these are things like gardening. And yes, hiking is also useful physical labor. It gets something accomplished. What does it get accomplished, you ask? Well, you go from point A to point B and you see some amazing and beautiful things. Especially if, like me, you're an herbalist and you do a lot of wildcrafting, which is where you go out and you harvest, you forage for different herbs and sometimes things like that. I'm planning on doing that here in the next few weeks because we're getting the first rainfalls of the season. Yes, I know, it's January. This is the beginning of our, this is, for us, yeah, spring is almost here. Actually, it's end of February, or beginning of February. Excuse me, end of January, beginning of February. It's February 1st today. Oh, time is flying. Anyway, so you do have this time period, right, or not time period, meh. So this is, I'm planning very shortly in the next couple of weeks to go out to some different areas and walk around and pick nettles and horehound because those are those are going to be growing in abundance, and nettles especially because they are the first spring green that we get around here. So those, and of course nettles are just fantastic for you. Anyway, I've talked about them before, and they're a great green. They're very nutritious. And so, if you're hiking around and you're harvesting stuff and you walk away, with a huge bag full of herbs, it makes you feel pretty good. And if even if you're just hiking just for the pleasure of it, you're going up and you're seeing some amazing sights and you're doing something, you've accomplished something mentally. On top of that, you've also had the mental rest that hiking brings with you because you're spending time in nature. It's recreation. And so it is physical exercise, but it is accomplishing something as well. So it is useful physical labor. But gardening, chopping wood, other kinds of yard work, household chores, etc. I spent several hours yesterday, this weekend, just doing a bunch of yard work. We had a huge windstorm blow through last Thursday. I think it was, no, yes, last Thursday. And on Friday it dumped rain. And so we had this tree, right, well, that Thursday night, Friday morning, we look outside our backyard and our whole south fence had completely blown over, just fallen over, snapped in the ground. And a tree had also fallen and had gotten caught in the branches of another tree that was coming over our west fence. And so I had to go out there because I was afraid the tree was going to fall on the fence and we would be losing not only the south fence but also the west fence. And so I went out there and I pushed and shoved and hacked away, and I managed to get the tree, which was dead anyway, by the way. That's why it blew over. I managed to lever the tree down safely in an area, and then on Sunday we went out and we did a bunch of work. I chopped up some parts of another tree and also started kind of chopping up the fallen tree. We pruned a little bit, and then of course we also did some work on not the fence that fell, because that one's toast. We need a new fence there. But we did some work on another fence that had holes in it. And so I did several hours of work out there. That's a lot of exercise. It's a lot of exercise. And so it's actually, and I got a ton of stuff done. I felt pretty good about that. And so there was that mental benefit as well. But even just basic household chores like vacuuming, mopping, scrubbing the floor, things like that, scrubbing the tub, those are also good forms of exercise. And that reminds me of a few things that I need to do. Come to think of it, around the house. So, but all those are useful tasks, right, that you can do that have a benefit. They're exercise, and they have a benefit not only for your body, but also for your mind as well. And those are the best kinds of exercise. Now, as we end off today, or this evening, let's look at just a few of the benefits of exercise. Just a few of the benefits. First of all, exercise is the number one indicator of longevity of all the different types of all the different lifestyle principles. Exercise is the biggest one. Why? Or how do we know this? Well, it's pretty simple. If you go to certain parts of the world, you will find that there are people groups who subsist on almost nothing but animal flesh. In fact, some of them will eat it just straight raw, fat and all. Namely, I'm thinking of native Inuit tribes in Alaska and Canada, especially in the upper parts of Alaska and the Aleutian Islands. In the most remote parts of the Arctic Circle, you will have people groups who, well, you can't really grow anything up there. They subsist almost entirely on animal flesh. And whether that be fish or seal or whatever else they can scrounge up, whale, if they can manage to get one, all of that is something that, it's very difficult. And if you're living in a traditional way, then it's very difficult for you to get anything other than animal food up there. And so, other than trading, that's pretty much all, the only time that you can get anything like that. And so, and yet, people living on, they're living on this lifestyle, on this diet, this atrocious diet. The human body was not designed to live on that. It's horrendous for the human body. And yet, and they do suffer for it. They do die of cardiovascular disease relatively early. Their lifespan is shorter than the average Western lifespan by a good 10 years. However, that being said, if an American was put on that diet, their lifespan would be shorter by a good 40 years. If we, as Americans, were living on the kind of diet, or indeed any Westerner, was put on a kind of diet that the Inuit eat on a regular basis, the traditional Inuit eat on a regular basis, we would be dying in our 30s. These people are dying in their 60s, in their late 50s, and early to mid 60s on average. Why? Because they're exercising a ton. All that fat, all that cholesterol, they burn it. It's just necessary for them to have that many calories. And obviously, there are some detriments as well. Again, they still do die from heart disease and cancer. Not cancer, heart disease and strokes. Pretty much that's it. Cardiovascular events is pretty much all that they die from. Aside from, some sicknesses and of course exposure in cases. But often they will die of cardiovascular disease just because, what else are you going to do? And so, and yet they do it way more. They do it at way later than any of us would do if we were put on that diet. And it's because they're exercising and they're working so hard. And that's why we know that people who exercise, or that's one reason why we know that exercise is the greatest indicator of longevity. Actually, there have also been studies done. People who exercise and smoke. So smokers who exercise, excuse me, people who exercise and smoke live longer than people who do not exercise and do not smoke.
So smokers who exercise will outlive people who are not smokers but who also do not exercise. That being said, someone who does not smoke and does exercise will outlive somebody who smokes and exercises. So stopping smoking is still important. But if you smoke, if you're wanting to stop smoking and you want to kind of override the damage, at least to some extent, the damage that you've done, start exercising. It will increase your lifespan. It is amazing just how much exercise does. On top of that, exercise not only increases your lifespan, but it also strengthens your bones and your muscles, as well as the cardiovascular system. It basically strengthens your whole body, not just the muscles that you're using at that moment. It is something that strengthens the whole body. It's actually amazing. One of the best things that you can do for osteoporosis, aside from changing your diet, exercise, because that impact of walking, especially walking, of weight-bearing exercise, especially walking, really helps to get your bones to mineralize, and it helps prevent and fight off, at least the studies show that it can help to prevent and fight off osteoporosis. Really interesting, really interesting stuff. On top of that, if you have addictive behaviors and things like that, exercise provides healthy levels and types of dopamine in relatively high amounts, and it also improves your sleep quality on top of that. So it's just amazing. So if you have addictive tendencies, if you have anything like that, get addicted to exercise. Actually, no, don't get addicted to it, but you know what I mean. Choose exercise instead of whatever addiction of choice you happen to have. Whatever one it is that you're addicted to, choose exercise instead. Exercise provides that dopamine that you're looking for. On top of that, it improves your sleep quality as well, which most addictive behaviors tend to not do. So exercise is a huge thing in that. It also improves mental clarity, helps you to make better decisions because you've got more oxygen coming into your brain and also more blood overall. So you got more nutrition, more blood flow, and you're also taking away the waste products because you got that blood flow again as well. So your mind is more able to think clearly. On top of this, it overall improves your organ tone and organ function. And it also reduces the risk of multiple diseases, including and not limited to diseases such as type 2 diabetes, most cancers, if not all cancers, and cardiovascular disease. Now, type 2 diabetes especially is affected, and cardiovascular disease. Those two are especially affected by exercise because type 2 diabetes is often caused by something where your body is essentially not using, well, let me put it this way. The cells in your body with type 2 diabetes, what's happening is the cells in your body are usually glutted with energy, usually, most likely in the form of fat. And this is where your cells are, they're full of fat. You've got nice rings of fat around each and every one of your cells, or most of your cells, and you have tons of energy. And so your cells, of course, say, well, hey, I don't need this energy. You see, cells are designed to be unselfish. I don't need this energy. Give it to somebody who needs it. The problem is nobody needs it. Your cells don't need it because they all have that nice layer of fat around them. So the sugar just kind of stays in your bloodstream. Well, with exercise, guess what? Your cells need that energy now because the fat isn't enough. And so exercise does decrease blood sugar, and it also helps with type 2 diabetes in overall reducing symptoms, and it can, in coupling with other lifestyle changes, it can actually reduce or eliminate type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, there is a common myth that exists that type 2 diabetes is not curable. Now, in some cases, that may be true, but type 2 diabetes is absolutely curable when you use lifestyle treatments because type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease. When you fix the things that cause the disease goes away, and that's a cure, Now, that being said, this is what the studies show. This is not what's true for every individual. Okay, talk to your physician. Again, the information in this presentation is not intended for the diagnosis, treatment, prevention, or cure of any disease. Talk to a physician if you want to know anything about this. If you want to see this, talk to a physician. Ask about the College of Lifestyle Medicine. Ask if there's any lifestyle physicians in your area, or if you can be put in contact with one. Absolutely do that, because is really important. Cancers, same thing. Your body exercise increases your immune system. It strengthens your immune system, and of course, cancer's biggest weakness is your immune system. And so, strengthening that immune system, building that up, getting that out there, that is going to do more to help cancer than a lot of other things. So, strengthening that immune system, and of course, it will help to prevent. It can help to prevent cancer as well. And so, again, exercise, huge. And of course, cardiovascular disease, that also is very much obvious. Now, because again, you're actually exercising your cardiovascular system itself through cardio exercise as well as others. There are a bunch of other things that I could go into, but we are out of time. So we're going to move to Q&A here. If you have any questions at all, now is the time to ask them. You can leave them in the chat, or if you're in the Zoom, which I'm not sure if anybody is in the Zoom today. No, they're not. Okay. So if you're in the chat, then you can go ahead and leave your questions in the chat, and I will see them. So that being said, while I'm waiting, I do want to take the time to thank everyone for joining us here tonight. I want to thank you all for being here. It's fantastic to have you guys here. And please get this stuff out there. If you are watching this for the first time, whether it's a recorded video or if you're on the live stream and you haven't watched this before, or even if you've been watching for a while, or if this is something that you've seen off and on, whatever your case might be, get it out there. Share this stuff. It's so important. I have a real passion for this. I'm not making money off of this. I don't want to make money off of this. This is really important information that should be free, and it should be out there for everyone to know. So please do share it. Get it out there. Talk to people. Get it. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel or liked my Facebook page, please do so. Hit that notification bell as well. This is all really, really pertinent information that people really, really need to hear. We have a sad lack of health education in the Western world. There is just so much misinformation out there. It's really, really important to get this stuff out there. And of course, on top of that, we need to remember as well that we are Christians, right? And one thing that, and this is as much a part of the gospel as the Bible and as the cross. And so, if you want to know about this, if you want to know about that, check out the Bible studies that I have. I have Bible studies on that topic. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I did one. And in fact, just let's see, just here. This last Sabbath, I did a Bible study on the gospel, and I've done other as well. So please check that stuff out. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so I'm going to assume there aren't really any, unless you guys are taking a little bit more time. So, but please do check this stuff out. Share it. Check out the studies. Like the page. Like the video. Share it on Facebook and on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell, and you will get notifications. You will get a notification. I'm hoping by tomorrow I will have a video out that is music oriented. I'm really going to be trying for that. So yes, I apologize for it taking like 3 weeks, but I do want to get an actual music video out as well. Remember, I do not just health, I also do Bible study and also history and also music. I am a bard. That's what we do. Music, history, religion, and healthy lifestyle. So yes, please do get that out there. Please get the stuff out there. It needs to go out there. There's so much misinformation. The truth needs to go out. People will be helped by this information. I believe it with all my heart. And so please do get it out. Please do please, it's really, really important that that you do that. So thank you very much. Alrighty, it doesn't look like there are any questions in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and end it here. And of course, as always, we're going to end it with a word of prayer. So thank you once again, everyone. It is a blessing to be here, to be able to share this information with you. And I hope that it was a blessing, and that the Lord will be able to that the Lord will help us to implement these things in our lives. I know I need that. So let's bow our heads and close out with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your grace, for your mercy, for your love, and for your tender regard for us as individuals and as the whole human race. That you don't just care about our spiritual health, but that you care about our physical health as well. And Lord, that I just want to ask that you would please help us to implement these principles of exercise into our lives, that you would work in us what we cannot accomplish, that you would give us the desire and the ability to do these things, as well as the actual implementation of them, because it is you who works in us to will and to do according to your good pleasure. Thank you again so much, Lord, for everything, and especially for Jesus. Please, I would ask that you would send this out to everyone who needs to see it and to hear it. Thank you again. In Jesus' name we pray and ask all these things, and thank you so much. Amen. Alrighty, thank you very much once again, everybody, for joining us today, and I will see you all on Saturday, on Sabbath, at 10 o'clock, where we're doing our sacred history. We're continuing looking at natural health, by the way, at how God has led in herbal medicine and natural health in the development and the maintaining of the principles that he established at the very beginning of time, at the very beginning of the human race. So thank you very much again, and I will see you guys then at 10 o'clock Saturday. God bless you.